Good evening. I'm going to go over today's trades and last night's overnighters. So I had two overnighters, which were SPY calls, the 309s and the 312s. And let me see. I'm trying to look at the timestamps. I got the 312s at 12:32. I got over zealous right here because I thought it was going to bounce right here after you already have let's see, yeah, it's already dropped to this 318 to right here, and it's already dropped $12. And usually I think a range a lot, and when I think that they go at an extreme range, see, stocks trade at, like, they have like normal ranges, like Facebook will normally trade range like $3 to $4, and extreme range would be anything from like $6 to $8. So I do a lot of range trading, and I think like that. And if things are really overextended range wise, I will start looking for reversals. So I grabbed 312s with the idea that if you look at SPY's history, right in here, every time, right here, every time there's a big gap down and dump, there's an overnight pump. Same right here. Same here. And I mean, you can just see right here. You see it over and over and over. Every time there's a big right here, big gap down, and next day it's green. So there's always, well, I shouldn't say always, there's this high probability that there is going to be a dump and an overnight pump. So I grabbed the 312s right here, and then it kept going down. So I was like, okay, I will grab another layer. I grabbed the 309 calls at 3 p.m., which is right about here. So I almost nailed the bottom on SPY yesterday at 3 o'clock. Now, it did gap up, and I did take profit and made money off the 309 calls, but I did not make anything off the 312, and I let them, expire worthless. Now, the reason I got out as soon as the market opened, I mean, it's already went up. I think it was up like 60 points, and I mean, it looks like a huge bear flag. So as soon as it opened up and the calls were up, they were up, I don't know, like 100%, over 100%, I got out immediately, and 100% is my target. So that is why I did the overnight. That's why everybody probably got puts last night, thinking we're going to gap down more and go down more, which we did go down more, but I knew based on history that there was a higher probability that we were going to get an overnight pump, because the Fed loves to pump the market overnight. So the repos and stuff. So that's my theory, and I think the same thing's going to happen all next week too. I think that we're going to have dumps and overnight pumps. So that's probably going to be the theme. So anyways, that was the idea behind the two SPY calls at the end of the day. One was good, one wasn't. So the other ones, see, I grabbed Disney. Let's see, let's get this blown up. Now I use the 10-minute chart. I look at all time frames, the daily, the weekly, but I mainly focus on the hourly and 10-minute. And when I saw right here, I saw Disney. I got 115 puts at 9:53, which was right about 9:53, right about here. I saw it coming down, and I thought it was going to break down right here. I had my stop for higher day, and it stayed underneath my stop, and it collapsed. So that worked out. I should have waited, been little more patient, and got it here. But the way it was trading, it had this big red bar, and it opened, and it started to look like it was starting to get momentum and some steam to the downside. And this is pre-market lows right here. So I thought it was going to pick up steam right there and just go through. And it didn't. It chopped a little bit, then it came down. So that was a good play. That was the meaning behind that. Now the next one was SPY, the 304 puts. Now the reason I got SPY, what time did I get SPY? 10:14. Yeah, right here, 10:14. I got it on the break of this right here, the pre-market higher low, which is like 305.74. I got the break of that, and I got that little short sell-off right there. So that's why I grabbed it right there on SPY. The next one was VXX. Now, VXX, you got to know what you're doing when you're trading these, because You cannot, and I see people all the time, and I shrug every time I see people trying to chart VXX or UVYX or TVIX. You can't chart them. You can't chart them because they have decay. They have contango, and contango just is just all it is decay. And every day, if VIX is under $20, it decays more and more and more. SPY can go down a little bit, and it will still go down. SPY will go sideways, it will go down. SPY goes up, it will go down even farther. So you cannot chart those stocks, those vehicles, not even stocks, ETFs. You can't chart them. So the only way to chart them is to go by VIX and the SPY. And I was going by SPY today, so I grabbed 48 calls at 68. And what time did I grab that? That was 11:19. So that was 11:19 right here. And I grabbed them. I ended up selling on a pop, but I didn't sell all of them. I kept one YOLO. Now, let's see, 11:19. Where was that? Right here. Yeah. Well, the reason I got this it was not really based on the chart. The reason I got it was a YOLO trade on the 48 calls on that particular trade because I wanted it to pop up, SPY to pop up more so I could reload, but I was afraid it's already tested the 300 level, right here, and it was coming down right there too, and I was like, okay, if this breaks the 300, it's going to get really nasty, really ugly. And I want to be in UVX, I want to be in VXX. So I went and chased it, and it did get a little bit of drop. I did end up selling some at like 95. I ended up selling I had like a few contracts. I sold like 2 at 95, and I held one. And I ended up, technically I was probably flat, but if you do the math, I bought it at 68 and I sold 2 at 95. I held 1 to 0. That, I was like 15 cents. So off, but anyways, I didn't want to miss this drop because if it did get under 300, I was afraid it was going to be a massive sell-off, and I wanted to get a piece of it. And I was willing to risk, a couple cons on the VX 48 calls. And I did have other VX calls, but I'll look at those in a second. Now, the other one I had today was ROKU. I picked up ROKU, and this was a pretty easy trade. I picked ROKU because it came down to the 106 area. I didn't grab the calls. I grabbed the puts because I saw that it came up and retested the 200 EMA. And as you can see, it's the high is higher here, and there's a higher low. But you can also see on the histogram, it was making a hidden divergence, which means that when it's making lower highs on the price action and the histogram is making higher highs, it's a hidden divergence, and it's also rejecting the 200 EMA. So that to me is why I jumped in, and I jumped in 107 puts at 52 cents, which ended up being like a 200% winner. So that was a perfect call on ROKU. Now, the other two, VXX, which is kind of funny because I grabbed these VXX calls for next week, anticipating the really bad news coming out for the coronavirus or COVID-19, because this sell-off we had today is just the beginning. The protesting's been going on for about 2 weeks now. It takes about 2 weeks for the virus to get into your system and show effects. So we're going to see some really big numbers in the next week. And I think that SPY is going to get crushed. And this is different than the first wave, because the second wave, we have all these protests. There's more people going to be infected. It's going to be a lot worse. And the economy is barely hanging on. The businesses are still closed. So tens of millions of people are out of work. The economy is very fragile. And this is going to be very catastrophic. If it's half as bad as I think it's going to be. So I ended up wanting to grab VXX for the whole of the weekend, and I grabbed VXX 50 calls at $1.17 at 10:33, which was right here, and it popped all the way up, and they ended up going 200% on the 50 calls of 375. So I sold it. I was up so much. I was like, okay, I need to take my money. I can't be dumb, because I've been times where I would be up so much, and I'd be like, you get greedy, and then you end up taking a loss. So I was up over 100%, and I was just like, I'm taking my money. I'll get back in. I'll get reloaded. I mean, the market's not going to go straight down. It's going to pop up a little bit. So it's like, okay, and that's exactly what happened, because this drop right here. What drop? Let's see, 10, 11, 10. Yeah, that was this drop right here. So then it came back up, and this is where I was getting a little, after I took my money out, I was afraid, okay, we're going to get that drop. We are going to get that little flush, but we didn't. It came back up and tested VWAP, and right when it tested VWAP is when I grabbed the VXX 55 calls. I couldn't get into the 50s because they weren't down at the 117 level I bought them at. They were at like $2.56, and they were too pricey for the room, and I wanted to find a better strike. So I went to 55 calls, and 55 calls were at $1.53. So I mean, the IV for VXX calls were through the roof, so they were expensive. So I did grab the VXX calls at right when SPY went touch VWAP, and it popped again. And I was going to hold these ones over the weekend, but I was up quite a bit again, and I took my money and got out. And then I ended up grabbing more VXX calls, and I do have some going over the weekend now. So third time's a charm. But I said when I got in the third time that if SPY dumped again, that I would get out. Because when I got them, they were right here at VWAP again, and it started to come down. And I thought, okay, the end of the day, I predicted the end of the day would squeeze, but it was started to drop. I was like, okay, this time might flush. And I told the room that if it does get under 300 and flush this time, I'm getting out and whatever. But it didn't flush. It came back up, and then my original thesis was that the squeeze did happen. All these future ES futures traders had to cover, so you have to buy to cover. So that's why ES went up at the last 10-15 minutes. So that was why I picked these, and that's where I picked him and the mentality. Now next week is going to be probably a bigger week than this week. I mean, I know that a lot of people thinking that SPY is going to bounce, and I think they're wrong. I think SPY is going to dump. It's going to be just like it was last night and today. It's going to dump and overnight pump. So we'll probably see a big gap down on some bad news over the weekend. I don't anticipate anything bullish happening, especially after the Fed has been showing so much uncertainty. So, but I will go over more of that and my watch list and stuff like that. But this is going to do it for the recap. If you're not a subscriber in the room, you should be, because I ended up finishing the week like 22 wins to 3 losses, 88%. You're not going to find that anywhere else, especially at $35 a month. So that's going to do it. Thanks for watching.